All right, welcome everybody to the PeopleSoft HCM update and roadmap session. I'm Robbin Velayedam, Senior Director of the PeopleSoft HCM Product Strategy team, and I want to thank everybody for taking the time out of their RECONNECT Envision conference schedule to join us today. We have 90 minutes together to talk about HCM. I must admit that it's difficult to keep anybody's attention for 90 minutes in person, let alone virtually. But I will do my best by showing you some interesting stuff that the PeopleSoft HCM development team has been working on and continues to work on for our roadmap over the next probably year to 18 months or so, maybe outside two-year time frame, because that's how far in advance we build out our roadmap. And I'm hoping that with the information that you get from this session, that you are able to check that information against your own roadmap and make sure that the roadmap that you have for your organization includes some, if not all, of the functionality that we're building out in PeopleSoft. Paco mentioned it towards the end of his session, and I wanted to reiterate how important it is and how grateful we are that our PeopleSoft customers and partners step up whenever we have a conference. I mean, this is the inaugural conference of RECONNECT Envision, and yet we've gotten so much support from our customers and partners. Certainly, if you guys as customers don't show up, what's the point of us doing this, right? But I think one of the unsung heroes of having a successful conference are in fact our partners, and Smart ERP is one of those PeopleSoft partners that have been around for a long time, been supporting PeopleSoft customers for a long time, who have stepped up and become a sponsor of RECONNECT Envision. So I just wanted to take a moment to thank them for their sponsorship and let you all know about them in case you don't know. Doris Wong is the CEO of Smart ERP, been a longtime friend of PeopleSoft, used to run development for PeopleSoft back in the day, and so has all of that knowledge and experience leading her team. As you can see, the different services and solutions that Smart ERP provides customers today. One of the things that stands out for me is the Smart E-Verify and Form I-9 functionality and integration that they have developed that we have not delivered out of the box. So that's a great area that Smart ERP has been able to be successful with. But you can see all of their services there. They're also presenting, so it's not just a matter of being a sponsor. They're also providing content, and you can see there's a couple sessions there, including Doris is doing a session tomorrow on the different ways you can deploy PeopleSoft. So I encourage you all to take a listen to their presentations or even stop by their virtual booth. I want to make sure that you at least see the forward-looking safe harbor statement. I think you've attended enough Oracle sessions to know about these, but it's important because most of what we talk about or I talk about today will be new stuff, forward-thinking stuff. When we try to look forward, it's almost impossible to do so without thinking about what happened in 2020 and going into 2021, because I think it's challenged us to rethink our priorities. I know from a personal perspective, I'm rethinking my priorities, my personal priorities, my priorities with my family, extended family, friends, career, everything, right? Because so much happened in 2020 with the pandemic and with social injustice and all the other things that were happening here in the U.S. and around the world. I think that it had everybody individually as well as organizations pause and think about what their priorities are. And I just listed a couple of these things, and some of these I kind of took from a couple articles that Jason Aberbrook has posted on HR Executive. If you haven't seen some of his work, I highly recommend that you take a look at what he's done. He's an HR influencer. He's been in the business for a very long time and talks with executives all the time. And some of the things that we've noticed is an enhanced awareness to health and safety, right? I mean, that health and safety in terms of being able to track COVID testing and COVID cases, but just health and safety in general. And we have a number of customers that have health and safety as a big part of what they do on a regular basis, particularly our oil and gas customers, engineering and construction, manufacturing, some higher ed and healthcare, of course. But it seemed like all of our customers were well more aware of how they can better track and prevent and document health and safety incidences. Another thing that I think 2020 did was challenge our value systems. As an organization, we're responsible for getting stuff done, right? And getting it done within the policies that we have as an organization. But what are those value systems? What are we valuing the most? And how much of that involves the employee and what the employee is going through? And that's why I think humanizing work has really been something that customers have looked at, organizations have looked at. Empathizing with people and what they're going through on a daily basis. And then having a newfound appreciation for some of those positions or roles within organizations that we just took for granted, you know, just the simple things that people did during the pandemic that that we all took for granted. You know, they went from not being appreciated to becoming almost like a frontline worker. And without them, we wouldn't have been able to get through it. So that was another thing that really helped us understand where we are with our priorities. And then the new normal of operations, right? It seems like we now have this new normal where there's a lot of people working from home, and we're dealing with working from home and all the things that come along with it. And then there's a prioritization of enabling our workforce. Since we are more distributed now, how do people get their hands on self-service things to do themselves, as opposed to coming into an office and having an ability and a campus and having to support them that way? Now, how do we support a workforce that's completely distributed or largely distributed? And then I see that we value agility, or maybe adaptability is a better term, over predictability. You know, we have these project plans that we have for deploying functionality or getting current or upgrading or whatever the case may be. And we try to predict when that's going to be done. And then all of a sudden a pandemic hits like it did last year. And then we're trying to figure out, okay, do we pause and pick this project back up the way it is? Or do we change? Do we change our scope? Do we change how we do things? Many of our customers, in talking to them around this time last year, didn't know what to do. We all didn't really have an idea of what to expect. And then all of a sudden, we had to make a decision. Do we wait until things get back to quote unquote normal, or do we adapt and we figure out to get where we need to get to? And many customers adapted, right? And even embraced something like remote working, where some of our customers the organization didn't support remote working, but we had to figure out a way to do that, right? And then finally, the reason why I'm kind of talking about all this is because it helped us reevaluate our roadmap. So we did that as well internally here at Oracle with a number of our applications, including PeopleSoft. And we suspect that, you know, customers did as well. So did our partners in figuring out what needs to get done first. And in many cases, we did have to shift our priorities based on what we needed to deliver. So just a thought around, you know, how 2020 challenged us and helped us rethink our priorities. I think we're all in the same boat when it comes to that. Now, when we rethink about our roadmap, what I'm going to do today, take a different approach to this roadmap session. Instead of just going through feature by feature, showing you what we've done, I'd like to frame this as part of maybe a checklist for you all to consider when you put together your roadmap, or as you rethink your roadmap moving forward. You know, we're not a cloud company in terms of PeopleSoft's not a cloud product where we can just we can develop something new and then deliver it and it automatically shows up in your environment. You know, there's a step in between, which is you as an organization need to evaluate what we are doing or what we are planning on doing, and then determine for yourself whether you want to put it into your production environment. And as such, you have control over that roadmap. So we can build all the stuff that we want, but it's important to know how that stuff gets into your environment. And I know that we come out with releases many times a year and it can be overwhelming. So what I want to do as part of our time together today is to help you understand what we think are the most important things for you to consider as you rethink your roadmap. Now, the first three things are things that we've been talking about for many years. I was trying to think when's the first time I started talking to customers about those first three things, and I think it was probably 7 or 8 years ago. And customers have come along for the ride because they realize as a customer, it's important for you to stay current, not only with the HCM applications as best you can, but also your tools releases. I mean, those are really the best way to mitigate risk and to take advantage of new functionality and make sure that you don't fall behind, right? Implementing a selective adoption strategy where you can cherry pick individual features while you wait to get current, which hopefully is happening every 1 or 2 years, right? And then along with that, deploying Fluid. Hopefully, by now, customers have come around. Most of our customers run Fluid in some capacity. If you haven't, hopefully you're starting to deploy Fluid components as we deliver them. But I would say those first three items that are checkmarked, those are table stakes. If you are not doing that, we've got to start there before we can think about redesigning a roadmap or defining a roadmap that include the rest of the items on this slide. So I'm planning on talking about each one of these one at a time and show you some examples and hopefully give you enough information to kind of get you started. This is in no particular order. I think these are all things that you should consider as part of your roadmap. Some things you may find more important than others based upon your organization and what you guys are trying to do. But at the very least, you should take a look at each one of these. Okay. So let's first start with job data modernization. So you probably know that job data modernization, at least the first iteration of what we were able to deliver, happened late last year. And we've been talking about it in terms of getting customers to understand the change itself and why the change is important. And I just want to review real quick why we think this is really an important part of what has not only been delivered, but why it should be an important part of your roadmap. So as you know, job data looks something like this in your environment, most likely, right? Where it's a collection of tabs with a collection of data within each tab. This component has been around for a very long time, and as a result, we've added more and more capabilities, more and more fields to the component, and we haven't taken an opportunity to redesign it up until now. Now, if you attended Paco's session, which I'm assuming most of you did, you got to see a demo of the new job data modernization. So I'm not going to go through and do yet another demo, but I'm just going to highlight a few things that Paco didn't as part of the demo. So as you come into Fluid Job Data, you're going to have a new homepage here under Workforce Administration. You've got the Manage Human Resources tile, right? And you'll have a new homepage where you can get to Manage Job, which this part is new for you when you come into Job Data. But a couple of things I just want to highlight. Again, Paco did show some of this, but I think it's important to highlight for those of you who may not have attended. The first thing that you're going to see is configurable search is available with Job Data. And that means that when you come into Job Data as an administrator, you're going to have the option to search based on fields that are shown there in the middle part of the screenshot that I'm showing you. You can save your searches, and then you can access through the drop down those previous searches, or the system will save your recent searches, and then you can just click search again to search that. And then on top of this, you are able to go in, and Paco showed you how you made that the configuration change where he added HR status to the search results. You can change what the criteria is to be searched on. In other words, what fields are showing up here in the middle part, or what's going to be shown in the search results. And this is all something that, as a functional person, as an administrator, you can go in and do. You don't have to rely on a technical person. Why this is important is because we spend a lot of our time in search as admins, right? In HR offices, we do searches all day long, right? Because that's the first step before you actually go take action on somebody or just look up somebody's information. So the more flexible, the more personalizable, more configurable the search is, the better. So that's the first big change that you'll see with job data modernization, is that you're able to make these changes yourself just by navigating to search configuration and including any field that's listed as part of that record, right? The other thing that you'll notice is when you come in, when you actually select the person that you're looking for after you've done your searches, we're going to show you or present to you the last few transactions that were made for this person. This is really important because now that we're more of a distributed workforce, we've got people working from home, we got people in shared service centers. You need a way to be able to know what changes have been made for particular employees in case more than one person has to work on it. All right, so this is a great way to be able to see, oh, there's something already in progress, so I shouldn't be taking action, right? Or maybe I should check with that person who's processing that action to make sure that that gets done first before I initiate a transaction for that employee myself, okay? So that's something new as well. Now, if I want to create a job action, what you'll see different in job data is this modal window that asks for the effective date, sequence, action, and reason. This is the bits of information we need in the system to help drive what the user is going to see next. Because using Page and Field Configurator, you as an organization can determine what steps, what fields, and what behavior the system, what pages the user will see when they enter in that action. Because we all know that no two actions are the same, right? Transferring an employee from one department to another or one manager to another doesn't usually require as much information presented to the user or entered by the user than if they were doing a promotion with a pay change or something that's more complicated, right? So no two transactions are the same. So why do we treat them the same in job data today? Why are we presenting the user all the information that's in job data for every single transaction that they do? And why this is also important is that as we go through transitions as organizations and we bring in new people in HR to take the place of people who are leaving, those folks have a different expectation for what the system should do, right? Younger generation tends to expect the system to do more of the heavy lifting and just present to the user what information it needs, instead of showing everything and having the user trying to figure out what they need to enter. So that's the approach that we're taking here. So based on what I put in as an action or action reason and what we've defined in Page and Field Configurator, the user experience will be defined. And so when I come in here, here's an example of the guided process that's available now with job data that has all of the steps. Okay, so this essentially would be a situation where you've defined a transaction that the user needs to see everything in the system. Okay, and that means we show every step that's available, including some drop zone steps if you want to. That could be based off of the specific information that you as in the organization want to capture. So everything is shown, but these steps are non-sequential, which means that you don't have to go in order. We know as admins, we're power users. We don't like to have to go through step by step and through the process. We would rather have the ability to go step by step or jump around as needed. And because it's non-sequential, you can jump around, but it'll still track when you've visited a certain step. Drop zones are available at the top and bottom of each page, so you'll be able to make customizations that way. Attachments are available, which we didn't have before. The fields are grouped together to make more sense so that the user can easily find the data that they're looking for. And again, using Page and Field Configurator, you can hide and mask data as you need to, right? Here's an example of fewer steps, the same guided process, but instead of having 8 or 9 like we did in the last example, now we have 5. And if you consider the last step being a summary page just showing you what you've changed, then there's really only 4 here, right? So an example of how the process is more aligned with the complexity of the transaction itself. And then once you submit it, there's approvals. So just so you know that approvals are not mandatory, but we've heard from customers that they wanted to have approvals. We think in this day and age, it's probably more important than ever, again, with the distributed workforce. You never know, you may not know what other people are working on. It's a good way to not only notify people that transactions are being completed, but also in some cases get their approval depending upon what type of transaction it is. All right. Now, so that is just my quick summary of job data. We have a lot of information, including on our blog site, about what job data can do, and it shows you also how to prepare to prepare for job data and prepare your organization. I'll leave you with this note. The reason why I see this as an important part of your roadmap is for a couple reasons. Number one, we're going to continue to build this out, including modernizing the person data component, which goes hand in hand with job data. And then at some point, we will have to de-support the classic version of job data. We're not at that point yet, but once there's enough time and you guys have enough time to deploy job data, that will be the main way going forward that we support for entering actions into job data. We also think that it's just a benefit all the way around, not only for your power users today, but also new users coming in, new administrators coming in, and it tightens up your controls, right? Because now you're able to control what type of data is entered into the system for specific transactions. Okay, so that's job data in a nutshell. I wanted to move on now to the second thing that's kind of part of my suggestions for evaluation for your roadmap, and that is deploying Kibana analytics. Now, you saw from Paco's demo some of the cool new Kibana analytics and dashboards that we are delivering as out of the box for customers, and see the powerful visualizations that are available with Kibana that we just never had in PeopleSoft. And we're excited about it as an HCM group, so is our financials group, having Kibana be that solution for everybody, right? And we see this as not just a way to get insightful data for admins. We think that there's a potential here for many different types of users to benefit from seeing this data. Perhaps you have users within your organizations, maybe they're managers or directors, that love to do number data crunching, right? Those folks are probably downloading data or getting reports from you, putting them in Excel and doing all sorts of stuff with it, which we don't really want them to do, right? Because a lot of the data in HR is confidential data, and we don't know what happens to that data once they get on somebody's desktop in an Excel spreadsheet. We don't know where they get sent. We don't know who gets what, right? So it's better to see this data in PeopleSoft. And we feel like a dashboard like this, which I'm showing you here, is a recruiting dashboard we delivered recently. This is something that even your leadership, maybe even executives, would like to see, right? Because of the way the data is presented, the way it's interoperable between the different tiles. You can click on a value in one tile, and the other tiles repaint to show you the data that you selected. So these are all really powerful kind of expectations that I think users have for data analysis, and I think it's a great start, especially within PeopleSoft. Now, Paco showed you a good demo. I don't plan on doing a demo of that. I think you kind of get the sense of what the benefits are. You do need to be on Tools 858 to be able to take advantage of the Kibana analytics functionality that's delivered through Tools. Here's a list of some analytics that we've delivered already and some that are in our roadmap to deliver. But I don't want you to feel like you have to wait for us to deliver the exact analytic that you're looking for, because the way it's built off of search indices with Elastic, this is something that you can build out yourself, right? The visualizations are there. You can use our examples as templates if you like, but there's nothing stopping you from deploying your own, especially if we have not delivered them or you don't see them on this list here, which doesn't mean we may not get to it. It's just that these are the ones that are taking priority right now. So my advice for kind of getting started with Kibana. So first of all, you can certainly reach out to a partner. A number of our partners are super excited about analytics and would love to provide those types of services. I've also noticed that there are customers that have been able to deploy Kibana on their own. So it's up to you. It's up to you on where it falls in your roadmap and your priority and how much time you have to devote to it. But there's no additional license required. We have a Kibana section on PeopleSoftInfo.com that'll get you started to learn the ins and outs of how it all works. What I would do is I would pick one of the delivered dashboards that we've already made available, preferably the HR one, because everybody can relate to that. But you pick whichever one you want. Download it from the PUM image and show it to your leadership and see what they think. Let's get that feedback to see if they like it just as much as we do, right? And if they do, and you want to get started, make sure you get to upgrade your tools. I'm sorry, I mentioned 858. I think I meant to say 85707 or higher, but 859 is out already, so you may want to try to get to at least 858. And then what you want to do is just pilot one dashboard to your users, your group of users. Okay. Take any dashboard that you want, find a pilot of users, and deploy it to them and see what they say. And like I said earlier, deploy your own dashboard if you want. You don't have to wait until we deploy ours. So I just noticed I did make a copy and paste error. I do apologize. You do need to be on tools 858 for Kibana. Please ignore these two bullets right here. I apologize for that. To learn more about Kibana visualizations and how the dashboards work and get some more detailed examples of what we've already delivered and what's on our roadmap, you can attend a session I have the session listed up here. It's on Wednesday. Tammy and Julie will be doing a session on Kibana so you can dig a little deeper. Okay. So let me shift gears and talk about chatbots. So I think you should also evaluate chatbots as part of your roadmap. Now, unlike Kibana, which comes with tools, and the prerequisite there is to try to get to 858 to be able to use it. With chatbots, you do need to get a membership or a subscription, I should say, of Oracle Digital Assistant, right? But before we get into the mechanics of that, we feel pretty strongly that running chatbots is yet another way, an important way to reach an audience in your organization that you may not have reached before, right? There are a number of people who prefer self-service than they do over picking up the phone, right, and calling HR and figuring out what they need to figure out. There are people who like the chat interface, to be able to type in just through an utterance of any kind, through a chat window, what they want from the system or what their problem is, and try to get an answer that way. This is becoming more and more normal as we use it in our everyday lives with customer service, with applications online, with retail shopping, all of those types of things, banking services, etc. It's becoming more of the norm. So we feel like chatbots is a great way to reach that audience, to get them to use self-service to get the information that they need without having to call HR, which can take time. And we all know that many employees who will call HR multiple times to see if they get the same answer more than once, right? So based on that, the time savings of actually having a chatbot and having it up and running 24/7 for employees to get basic information out of the system that they would otherwise have to either live without or ask a friend, which you can't rely on that information, or maybe call and take up a valuable time and resources. So you may know a little bit about what our chatbot solution looks like. So for this, as I mentioned earlier, mistakenly with Kibana, you do need to be on 85707 or higher. You do need to get a subscription with ODA. And what we've done in PeopleSoft is make a chatbot integration framework available so that PeopleSoft can talk to the Oracle Digital Assistant and back and forth. Oracle Digital Assistant, that application helps us translate what the user types into the chat window and map it to an intent. And that intent can be something that they need to get out of PeopleSoft. And that's where the integration framework pulls that all together. It handles the security, it handles login, it handles all the authentication and everything, so that a user can log in just like you saw in Paco's demo and be able to use the chat, what we're calling Picasso now, the digital assistant, to access their own information and get questions answered. So all of that is developed there and is made available through the chatbot integration framework. Now, where Picasso comes in is that before we could only do one skill at a time or one chatbot at a time. That is to say, if you wanted to deploy an absence chatbot so people could look up their time off balance and perhaps look up when their last paycheck was deposited or what was included in that paycheck, you would have to go to individual chatbots. You would have to go to the absence chatbot and ask your absence questions. How much leave do I have? And then exit out of that and then go to the payroll chatbot to find out what was your last paycheck amount, gross or net amount, right? Now with Picasso, it's all pulled into one. So you open up that chat window like Paco did in his demo. You can type in whatever you want as long as that skill is already supported in the back end. You don't have to open up multiple windows. You have that one chat window. You can start a transaction and then go ask something else and then come back and then finish the transaction, all within the chat window. And the chat window, because it's all part of one instance, knows what you're trying to do. So that's why we're really excited about Picasso, because now there's that one icon that can sit at the bottom of the screen that you can now see. So let me exit out of here and go to the home page here. So as I'm in the I've logged in as Rosanna Channing, but that really doesn't matter here in this case, because what I'm going to do is show you a little bit about what Picasso is all about. And again, you did see from Paco a good demo that kind of bounced between different different chatbots or skills within there. So if I come in here and if I type in something like, let me type in get admin's contact info. Okay. So I'm using the chatbot. Instead of navigating the system to find this information, I'm just using the chatbot to get the specific information myself. Why this is important is as you start to connect with some of those employees that don't use the systems as much or as often as you'd like, this is a great way to pull them in, because they don't need to remember where they went last time to get admin's information, right? Many of our users in the PeopleSoft system in your organization are casual users, and they may not remember where to go. And certainly they would use the keyword search, and that's why we have that powerful keyword search now. But also chatbots is a great way to get them connected, right? So here I can type in admin. There's only one admin in the group, and it gives me admin's information, right? I didn't have to navigate in PeopleSoft. I didn't have to find company directory, and I didn't have to go and look up admin that way. I could just go in the chatbot and do that. And if I want to get something as simple as when will I get paid? Again, in this case, it's telling me when the next payday is. I didn't have to know that I have to go to payroll and go to self-service to do that, right? Although we may consider that intuitive to go to employee self-service and payroll, some people don't. And they find it much easier just to type in the question that they have and then have the system have ODA figure out what I'm trying to find out, and then present that information to me. It's personal, it's easy, it's fast, and I don't have to remember navigation at all. And notice how I'm jumping back and forth, right? The first thing I did was really a company directory lookup. Now I'm doing a paycheck lookup. And then from here, I can say, hey, if I want to, what's my sick leave balance? It automatically knows, hey, which balance, where do you want to go, right, for that? So I'll go to absence. I'll look at my absence balance. And then from there, it shows me my absence balance. It shows sick leave, and it shows vacation. So I can either type stuff out, or I can click on the menu, whatever I find easiest, whatever I prefer. We present the menu options because it's in some cases it minimizes mistakes, it minimizes the need to type, and maybe errors can happen that way. If we can anticipate what the user wants, we can provide menus and do it that way. So I think you kind of get a sense of why we're pretty excited about Picasso, because it pulls in all of these actions together, and you can do as many things as you want. You can go in and apply for sick leave like Paco did in his demo. You can look up your W-2, you can look up your medical benefits, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, let me go back to my deck. Now, how do you get started with chatbots? Okay, so with chatbots, again, where there's a chatbot section on PeopleSoftInfo.com, which I recommend you check out. There's a great spotlight video on getting started, which you can take a look there. I would demo the chatbot to your leadership. You can do some similar demos that you saw Paco do, or what I just did, maybe something like that, to get their buy-in, right? To get their understanding of how chatbots would work and how that would work in your environment. If you get the go-ahead, you do have to get the subscription to Oracle Digital Assistant. You can either get a licensed number of users, or you can get universal credits, and those credits will basically you'll be charged based on the number of times ODA is called to figure out a chat interface, right? So you have options at least, and you can work through which one would be the best for you. Meet the minimum requirements, which is to getting to the latest tools release to deploy this, which is 85707, and the minimum HCM, CRM, or ELM image. And HCM, it's image 31. That's the minimum requirements. I would also collaborate with others in your organization to see who else would benefit from deploying a chatbot. Because the way a chatbot is set up, that you can do, you don't have to just deploy HCM as your chatbots, right? You can do other things. You can do expenses. You can do any of the other applications that we have. You can build out your own chatbot skills. You can use ours, or you can do both. So I do recommend that you collaborate with others, because if you can deploy chatbots across your organization, the chatbot platform, the cost of the platform and the cost of putting this all together is spread across multiple groups, right? And you get the benefit, everybody gets the benefit of the chatbot interaction. I would pilot this, I would pilot one skill at least to a group of users to see what their experience is like, how much they benefit from it, how much they get out of it, do they use it, and then you can build off of that. There's no need to deploy multiple skills at once to see how things go. I would first start one skill. I'd pilot one skill with a small group of users, get their feedback, and then build out from there. What we've seen early on with chatbots is that the customers that I've seen deploy chatbots have been working with a partner. So I would recommend, in the case of chatbots, that you do work with a partner. We do have a number of partners that have virtual lounges or virtual booths at RECONNECT that you can work with to see how you can get started with deploying chatbots. I'd also recommend that you attend a Chatbots for PeopleSoft HCM session that's taking place on the 28th. Samita Rege is doing that session. I'll be at that session as well, and we can certainly can ask your questions there. We can get those answered too. And we'll go in a deeper dive into how chatbots work. Okay, the other thing that I had on my list for you to consider as part of your roadmap is evaluating the cloud. And to be more specific, it's just to learn about your options. I want to be very, very clear on what the suggestion here for me is. It's to learn about the options. It's not necessarily to engage with them or to make a transition. As Paco mentioned, there's no there's no need to, there's nothing mandatory that makes you have to go to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure or have to, deploy the Oracle Digital Assistant or have to move or transition off of PeopleSoft HCM applications to the Oracle Cloud HCM applications. Nothing like that is mandatory. The reason why I think it's important to just learn about the options is because you don't know where your organizations want to go next. I mean, we're in the IT world and we're in the HR world mixed together, right? Up until I think a few years ago, the HR world was pretty stable except for compliance stuff. But then things got turned on its head, right? So in the HR world, things are spinning fast. In IT world, things are always spinning fast. You put those two together, you just don't know what tomorrow brings, right? And we don't know what your organization is going to want to do in terms of where it fits in with the cloud. So the best advice I give to customers who come to me and ask me, they say, hey, Robbin, what's the deal with the cloud? What should we be doing? What should we be thinking about? I always say you have to know about your options and be aware of them in case decisions need to be made at your organization, right? So the number one thing Paco went through was the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. I'm not going to go through that in detail, but we do have a session on it, and I'll reference that in a minute. But we are seeing more and more customers move to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, whether it's to deploy their production environment on Oracle Cloud, or it's to deploy test environments, development environments, training environments, anything that requires users to spin up environments very quickly to use and then may not need it after that, right? So, and the more that we see the investment happening with the Oracle Cloud Manager application, which it's an application in and of itself, as far as I'm concerned, the more benefits that come from doing that. And then we've noticed, as a PeopleSoft customer, you can leverage cloud applications and technologies like the digital assistant, which enables chatbots. That's a classic example of how you don't have to move off your PeopleSoft environment the way it is. You can keep it the way it is, but you can still leverage Oracle technologies that run in the cloud, like ODA. And then if you want to transition to the Oracle Cloud HCM applications, then that's available there too. But those decisions are made by you guys, right? As an organization, you have to make that determination. My only goal is to make sure that you guys are up to speed on what those are. So with OCI, we have plenty of, we have a page on PeopleSoftInfo.com that talks about in detail the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure and all the benefits of that, and which customers have made the move and what was involved. With technologies like Oracle Digital Assistant, we've given you a great example with chatbots, how that works. And if there are other cloud technologies that Oracle has that you think are good candidates for integration with PeopleSoft, you should let us know, right? I mean, we try to stay ahead of the curve, but there may be technologies that your organization is using with Oracle that you think may be good ideas and have good use cases within PeopleSoft. We'd love to hear it. And as far as the Oracle Cloud HCM application, I mean, that's a whole other area, right? Within Oracle, it's big now. There's so many different applications. The best place to start there, in addition to Customer Cloud Connect, which is the source that Paco referenced in his session, another place to get good information is the PeopleSoft and Cloud webinar series. I'm co-hosting that with my peers on the Oracle Cloud application side, and we're just using it as an educational series. So when you get this deck, you'll have this link here, and you can go and you can register for those sessions. And all we do is just talk about the different things that are available in the cloud applications so that PeopleSoft customers can be aware of what can or can't be done in the cloud, right? And what's delivered out of the box and how does it all work. I'm learning as I go through this process, just like you will learn, and that's the key word, right? Is just learning about the options, right? That's the cloud session that I mentioned. We're going to go into more in depth about some of the things that are happening on the cloud HCM side, but also more importantly, what's going on with cloud infrastructure, OCI, and how that's benefited customers and what are the new functionality that's available through Cloud Manager. So encourage you to attend that if you want to learn more about cloud. Okay, the other item on my list for you to consider for your roadmap is leveraging configurations. And this is important because we feel like with configurations, and there are a number of them. I don't think I have them all listed here, but this is a pretty good list. It's a pretty good start. And what I've noticed when I talk to customers about configurations and I show this list, some of them you know more than others, right? And I think that's probably the case with us too, right? Some of these I know better than others. It just depends on my experience with them. But I think what this list shows, it shows you a couple things. First is that there's a lot, right? I mean, this is a lot. It would take a while to learn each one of these inside and out. I'm sure you see a few on there that maybe you didn't know existed. And so there are plenty of options for configuration frameworks that are available within PeopleSoft, whether it's part of the PeopleTools layer, whether it's part of the HCM architecture, if it's part of enterprise components, doesn't matter. It's there. It's something that either we will use internally to build out new functionality, or it's something that you can use, or I should say, you can use to build out, maybe automate a process that's manual today at your organization, or to use to extend delivered functionality, right? I mentioned when we were talking about job data modernization, page and field configurator is a powerful tool, and you can use it to simply kind of customize that flow that you have as an admin to enter a transaction. I mean, it's something that is it's subtle, but it's very powerful, particularly for the end user that's dealing with hundreds and hundreds of pieces of data to enter every day. We want to be able to minimize those mistakes, any mistakes that could happen. We want to make it easy for them to enter that data, right? So it's important to understand these configurations. As you don't need to know them all, but you need to understand what you're capable of doing with them. What are some of the personalization options available? How does it help your business? How does it help the users? And then once we know that, then you can use them to make those changes in the system, either to avoid making a traditional customization in the future, which means changing code in PeopleSoft. It's going to cost time and effort, not only when you make the customization, but also carrying it forward each time you get current, right? So it's a much better approach to use a configuration framework like some of the ones you see listed here to customize PeopleSoft, right? It minimizes the impact it has on you each time you try to get current. So we look at it as a way to avoid future customizations. We also look at it as a way to reduce the number of customizations that you have today, and maybe even retire some of the customizations that you have by replacing what you made, the change that you made, using a configuration framework here. So for example, a drop zone could be used instead of that replaces a customization you made on a page because you wanted a label changed differently, or you wanted to add a custom field. Use a drop zone instead and get rid of that customization. You don't have to deal with it moving forward. These are examples that we can go through each and every one of these, and it would take us a long time. But there is a session that Lisa is doing on Wednesday where she's talking about the configurable framework, like what should you be using. Now, you would need all day to go through all of these. So she's focusing in on the big four, the ones that we think are the most powerful and get probably the best bang for the buck. And so she's going to go through those, and I highly recommend you attend that session because, again, it's important to either retire or reduce the number of customizations you have in your environment. And one of the best ways to do that is to leverage any one of these configuration frameworks to do that. Okay, next item on the roadmap list is kind of it's a bigger item in terms of there's multiple examples that I want to show. So it's targeting roadmap items, okay? So between our focus groups and our customer advisory board and just conferences like this, quite frankly, and conversations that we have with customers, and the posted plan features and enhancements page on PeopleSoftInfo.com, you're going to have a running list of the different features that we are planning to deliver as part of our roadmap over the next 18 months or so. Okay, so we do our level best to keep that roadmap page, that plan features and enhancements page on PeopleSoftInfo.com updated as best as we can. So the moment we deliver something that's posted on that page, we go out and remove it from the list so that you know that it's delivered. And in the moment that we get approval to add something new, or in the case of what happened last year, we had to reprioritize a number of different features. When we get approval to do that, we'll put it back up on that page, right? So there's multiple ways to keep up to date with what's going on with the roadmap. So my ask of you all is to know what those items are and target the ones that you feel need to be put in your environment, okay? And so there's some of, I'm not going to go through all the features we have on our list. You can do that yourself by going to PeopleSoftInfo.com, but I'm going to highlight a few that I think matter and kind of tie back to what I first talked about, which is what happened in 2020 that made us reprioritize, our roadmap. So the first item I want to talk to you about is remote worker. So I think I read from, I think it was a Forbes that posted that 70% of the US population will be working remotely at least 5 days a month by 2025. And I think depending upon what industry you're in, that number is going to be way, way, way higher, right? It just depends on the type of work and industry that you're in. But suffice it to say, everybody had to find a way to deal with remote working. And I think it's most likely going to be the new norm for many organizations, right? So we are working on a new remote worker functionality. Those of you who've been around PeopleSoft for a while probably know we have this teleworker functionality that's been in the system for quite some time. We're kind of piggybacking off of that, but we're going to make it more self-service. As you can see here, to be a little bit more of an activity guide. This is just kind of an early mock-up. Don't hold us to this. But I wanted to just give you a visualization of where we're thinking we're going with this. And the idea is to help organizations track which employees are working remotely and when they're working remotely. This is a good tool for managers to know where their employees are expected to be given their what they've agreed to do as a remote worker. Also helps administrators. So ultimately, we want this to be a good source of information of what the plans are for remote working. So this is something you can look forward to. We started working on this right away. This is one of those things that got reprioritized, right, based on what happened last year. So this is something that we're working on right now. And it'll be a part of HR, right? So it's something that as long as you're running PeopleSoft HR, which pretty much everyone on this call is probably does, you'd be able to download it as either a feature from an image, or as you get current with an image, you'll have that. But it's something we're actively working on now. Another HR feature is gender identity and employee self-identification. Again, this kind of gets to what I talked earlier about, just understanding the challenges that people are having, right, with everything that happened in 2020, being more empathetic to what's going on in the world, and that there's a lot of different ways that we can benefit and we can help our employees. And one is to address the gender identity situation, right? I don't know what to call it. I call it situation, but in this case, there's plenty of people in the employee population who don't identify with just male or female. But in our system, that's all we have is values, right? Male or female. And for those organizations that have been progressive enough to try to go and maybe update those fields and have different values in there. That's one thing, but as we've come to learn, as we've looked at this as a project internally, that whatever value you put in that field can have an effect downstream, because those values are used in other places, right? They're used other places within PeopleSoft. They're used with the vendors that you integrate with. So at some point, we just can't make that change in a vacuum. We've got to make a change and understand the implications of it. And it's more than just having just another or a third value, let's say, for male, female, or other. It's way more than that, is what we've learned, right? So there's your current gender, there's your birth gender. You also have to respect how the employee wants to be referred to, what their preferred pronoun is. What their sexual orientation is, what gender they identify with, which could be different than the gender that they were born as. And all of this has an impact, right? It has an impact in the system, and we have to figure out the best way to not only handle all these different permutations, but also make sure that in the system it doesn't downstream break anything. So that's what our team is working on today. We also realize that we have to deliver some level of configuration here, because not all organizations have recognized this yet. Not all countries recognize, not all federal governments or state or local governments recognize this. So we have to consider the fact that we have customers around the world, and understand that we have to give options in case there are organizations that work in areas that do not recognize anything other than male or female. So as I understand it, we've got a couple focus groups set up for this, and everybody's super excited about moving forward with this and getting this done. So I'm very proud of our team to be able to do something like this and do it and reprioritize it in a way that we can get it done sooner rather than later. Another item that kind of was influenced by the happenings of 2020 is our vaccination tracking, right? So as people get vaccinated, it's one thing when they get vaccinated from a personal perspective, but it's another thing when it impacts business, right? So we've talked to a number of different customers who, for example, have to track to make sure that certain employees have gotten vaccinated before they can have them work on site, right? Or have them deployed to a customer site if they're a consultant, or before they can come back on campus to teach, or anything else that needs to be done at that campus. So there are a number of examples where organizations need to track the vaccination of employees. And we see it not just during this acute time when we're trying to get everybody vaccinated for COVID-19. This could be for any other type of vaccinations that happen, right? I mean, there's a flu vaccine, there's pneumonia vaccine, and many of these happen at different intervals. Maybe in the future, there's additional vaccinations that need to take place. So we want the ability to allow you guys to be able to track people who have been vaccinated. So that's something that we're actively working on now. Another thing that's kind of been driven from what's happened last year and we continue to experience is being able to have a health card for a particular employees. Now, that health card will include the vaccinations, as we talked about. It can also include test results. And it doesn't have to just all be COVID related. I mean, obviously that's driving a lot of this, but being able to track information like drug tests and eye exams and other things that some organizations require their employees to do based on the type of role that they have could be a pretty important stuff. Even things like allergies that in some cases, some allergies can be deadly, so being able to track some of that information in PeopleSoft in HR as a employee health card is something that we're looking at. Certainly, there would have to be some type of employee acknowledgement, that they're okay with letting you know about this personal information, and so we have our acknowledgement framework that we can leverage for that. We can have approvals part of it too. So whenever something gets updated in a person's health card, if you want the approvals to have to kick off to do that, we can do that as well. We do have health and safety records already in the tables in the system that we will likely leverage. And then our vision is to maybe use the Kibana analytics to be able to show vaccination results, right? So that over all the data that we have in the system, how many people have been vaccinated. That's where Kibana comes in, is pretty powerful to be able to do that. So this is another feature that we're actively working on. If you want to know more about the last three features I discussed, the vaccination tracking, the employee health card, as well as the gender identity, you can attend Julie's session. She has an HR session for admins, and that's tomorrow afternoon. Okay. Again, I'm going through the list of things that I think are important for you to target as roadmap items to pull into your environment. Those were some HR features that we just talked about. For time and attendance, the scheduling, the schedule calendar is something that I think is an important feature for you to consider if you're running time and labor or absence management. The idea here is to be able to see all of your employees at once, if you're a manager, and see their schedule, right? And again, we learned this lesson last year when, as people were getting sick or they just weren't able to come to work, it was very difficult to anticipate who was coming into work and who wasn't, and get a bird's eye view of everybody's schedule. So this is something that we're working on and as you can tell, it'll be built out in Fluid. And there's a lot of data to be shown, but it's pulling data from multiple places, including, training, if you're using the training administrator module, or enterprise learning in case they're out because they're taking a class, or if they're out because they took a leave of some kind, or if there's scheduled time off. Like, all of that stuff needs to be shown for a manager to be able to plan what's going to happen that day or what's going to happen tomorrow, because everything's on a day-by-day basis. So this is a really cool feature. It pushes the envelope in terms of what we show on one component, particularly in Fluid, because there's a lot of data to be shown. But we also want the user to be able to take action from here as well. So a lot going on one component. But we think that it's the way a manager would want to see who's in charge of operations. If you want to know more about this feature, I encourage you to attend Lisa's PeopleSoft time and attendance session. She has hers tomorrow, and she'll go into this and maybe even do a demo of it as well. Okay. Another feature that I think is definitely important for those of you who are already running ePerformance, PeopleSoft ePerformance, but certainly even for those who maybe are using something else. It's good for you to know, I think, what we're doing here in performance management. So we're modernizing the flow for ePerformance, and that includes a new Fluid design to improve the usability of ePerformance. This is a big undertaking because any of you who use performance management, you know that the performance document itself is essentially, it's like a big work center, right? And there's a number of steps associated with the performance review process. But we're taking a fresh look at ePerformance for a couple reasons. Number one, it's time, right? It's time for it to get a fluid redesign, because the version that we have there has been out for several years. And we want also, for a second reason, is that we want performance management. We want a lot of it to be enabled on a mobile device. We know that many people would prefer using their mobile device to do some, if not all, of their performance review. Some people prefer doing it on a desktop, and that's understandable, but others do also prefer using their mobile device. So that's a classic example of where Fluid is not just being used because it's our new user experience platform, but it also helps address the demand for using a mobile device to enter in information. So very important there. We're also taking this opportunity to kind of catch up with the new ways customers and just in the industry in general is going with e-performance. So I think the traditional way of doing performance reviews has been you wait until the end of the year, and then you have a review with your employees, and you document, everything that's gone well, and maybe areas that they need to improve on all at once, right? And you rate all the different competencies, and you rate all the different objectives, and you do it all at once. Well, I think over the past couple of years, we've started to see a shift in going from once a year to doing more frequent check-ins. That is for two reasons. Number one, if you wait until the end of the year to give people feedback, then you've wasted an entire year for them to be able to make changes if you needed them to make changes. That's number one. And number two, it is very difficult to summarize an entire year, but if you can go back and check, if you do check-ins every so often, maybe it's every month, every other month, or what have you, it makes it easier, right? It makes it easier to track that person's performance. It makes it easier to give them the feedback that they need that's directly timely to things that they're working on. And then you can always refer back to those notes when you do write a formal review at the end of the year, instead of having to remember what happened throughout the year or go back to emails and other notes that you may have throughout the year. So we think overall this is a great opportunity for us to not only fluidize performance management, make it available on a mobile device, redefine it as a pure activity guide, so that step by step people understand what step they need to do as an employee versus what step an admin needs to do, or a step a manager needs to do, but also incorporate those frequent checkpoints that we see customers moving towards, while still preserving the traditional way of writing a performance review once a year, right? Because we still have a number of customers that want to do that. So you can see a list of some of the enhancements that we plan to make along the way, and we're pretty excited about this because it's taking a fresh new look at a transaction in our system. If you want to know more about the changes that we're making here, and we may be able to show you some early prototypes of what some of the pages will look like, although we just started with it. You should join Jeremy on Wednesday for his What's New in PeopleSoft ePerformance session, where he'll go over what we're expecting to do, and you can ask some detailed questions of what our plans are. And hopefully, if you're really interested in it, you'll join a focus group so you can provide feedback as we go along through the design process. Okay, another item that is good to target on your roadmap, particularly if, well, I would say you have to make a determination if it impacts you now. For some organizations, it may not impact you now, but we think this is where things are going, so it may eventually impact you now. And that is, how do we handle the pay me now, what we call pay me now. So the gig economy has again, this is something that's happening over the past couple of years. It's been developing, where workers would like to get paid once the job is complete, right? We call that the gig economy, you think of Uber drivers, and you think of all the different ways that people are freelancing to get to make money through projects and not necessarily becoming an employee, right? But we think that that's, and what we've seen with going on in the industry, we're seeing that customers are expecting that employees are going to want that, and it could be a key advantage for our customers if your system is set up so that you can pay people when they're asking for the money instead of waiting for the pay cycle to happen, right? So this, I think, in the long run, could be a competitive advantage if you're able to support that. Of course, it's an organizational decision, but when it comes to payroll, how can we provide the flexibility so that when certain employees who work on a project-by-project basis want to get paid when the project is completed, not when the traditional pay cycle happens, which could be once every 2 weeks or once a month or what have you, right? And is that pay based on a specific date or the specific completion of something? There's a number of different complexities that go along with this. This is something that we have on our roadmap and that we want to evaluate to get done. We have not started this. This is not something that we'll get started with until we're able to meet with a focus group and get a better understanding of the scope of what we can or can't provide through PeopleSoft. But I just want to let everybody know that this is something that's on our radar to tackle at some point. We just don't know the scope of it yet, but I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. Mostly because there's so much going on in Payroll for North America around compliance that is obviously more important right now, right? But as far as a big feature for new functionality in Payroll for North America, this is probably the biggest thing that we're looking at doing. If you want to learn more about what's going on in P&A, join Ann Leong and her session on Wednesday. She'll talk about regs and legs updates with compliance. She'll touch on this feature as well as a few other features that we're looking at for Payroll for North America. Some of you may be aware that we have a feature called the Questionnaire Framework in PeopleSoft, which was delivered a couple years ago. It allows you to survey your employees. So you can build a survey in PeopleSoft, and there's a number of different ways that we support building out that survey, right? We have predefined answers to questions. You can share a pool of questions and answers across multiple groups. You can create those questions and group those questions together. You can randomize them if you want to preserve the integrity of the survey that you send out to employees. You can anonymize the results that you get from employees. There's single choice, multiple choice, open-ended questions, et cetera, et cetera. So all that is within PeopleSoft. You may not be familiar with it, but in case that you are, it's kind of a reminder for those of you who do know that we have that. And it's important, is as important ever as today to survey employees, to understand what are the things that you need from them, what you need to know from them that we can do better as an organization, right? A lot of this, because when we originally delivered this, the only way that you could deliver a questionnaire if it was part of a part of an activity guide. Okay, so for example, there's an activity guide to enroll in benefits. So maybe the last step of that activity guide, you have a little questionnaire saying, how was your experience enrolling in benefits or an open enrollment? What benefit plans did you find most useful? Which ones did you find least useful, et cetera, right? So those are great examples of leveraging the PeopleSoft Questionnaire Framework within an activity guide to get information from your employees, okay? Again, that's already available in PeopleSoft today. and it's not an additional license or anything. It's part of PeopleSoft. What we're looking at doing as part of our roadmap is to build off of this functionality. So there's a couple things that we want to do in addition to what's already there. Number one is to be able to allow really allow for the survey or the questionnaire to live on its own as its own event and be decoupled from an activity guide. Because once that happens, then we can send a survey link to employees through an email, right? Or an online notification. So the example would be an employee would receive an email with a link that takes them to a survey or questionnaire that you want them to fill out. It's still better if it's part of an activity guide to make it a step in the activity guide, because then you get responses right then and there. You don't have to rely on people going into their email and clicking on a link. And it's more contextual, because once I'm done with the activity guide, I can then have the survey, and I'm more likely to fill it out, and my data is more likely to be accurate because I have the context of the transaction in mind when I do it. But not all surveys will be part of a transaction or part of an activity guide, but that's okay, because what we're working on is a way for you to create this questionnaire just like you normally would, but then just have it exist as its own event. You send out the survey, you send out the email with a link to the survey. Employees can access the survey outside an activity guide, and you would also be able to get the results of the survey shown to you in a Kibana dashboard. How cool would that be, right? To be able to see all the answers that you got from the survey in a Kibana dashboard, be able to drill down into it and to see the responses, see the grouping of all the different responses. That would be very, very cool. So we know that with adding those 3 bits of information that you see at the bottom of the screen as we work through that on our roadmap, if we're able to deliver on that, that makes the questionnaire framework a pretty solid, well-rounded feature. So hopefully you guys will be able to take advantage of it. And in the meantime, while we work on those last 3 items there, feel free to use the questionnaire framework to within an activity guide, because you can do that today. There's also a questionnaire framework focus group, so you can always reach out to me or reach out to Tammy Boyles and find out more about how you can participate in that. Okay, so the last item on my checklist for you for your roadmap is not necessarily something to put on your roadmap, but it's something that I think is important to keep your roadmap healthy and to keep it relevant. And that is to participate in the process. I mean, we're really happy with the level of participation we get from our customers. We feel like, I personally feel like, I feel very grateful for that, because without the participation from you all in conferences like this, in our focus groups, in our idea space, it would be less likely that we would deliver the stuff that we know will get used. And there's nothing worse than delivering a feature that doesn't get used, right? It doesn't help you guys, and it certainly doesn't help us. So for those of you who do not get a chance to participate in the entire process, I encourage you to do so. And that's because what last year taught me was that we need to do more than just have a conference and get together, once a year and catch up on all things PeopleSoft. You need to be engaged with what we're doing in PeopleSoft side, and we need to be engaged with you on what you need and how your requirements are changing on a more regular basis. We can't wait once a year to do that. It's great to have these conferences. It's important to have these conferences, and I can't wait till we meet in person, but that can't be the end all and be all. We have to have communication in between those conferences. So how do you do that? You can dedicate a person in your organization to do this, or you can spread it across multiple people. We've seen it work many different ways. Some organizations send their entire team to focus group meetings, but somehow get engaged in our focus groups if you're not already. That's really important. We have 20 to 25 or so focus groups going on. They tend to meet either ad hoc, or they meet once a month or once every other month in some cases. it's important to get engaged somehow with that. Send one person, send the whole team, send a couple people, it doesn't matter. As long as there's some type of representation there. At least you'll be able to keep up to date with what's going on in the particular area that you're interested in. You don't have to participate in all 25 focus groups. When you get this deck, just click on that link that says HCM focus groups, and you'll be able to see on our on the Quest website a list of all the focus groups. You can reach out directly to the person that runs that focus group, and ask, if you want to, ask to be a participant of it. And you can listen in. Many people just listen in on kind of what's going on, and many people provide their input. We would love to hear from you in those focus groups, so we make sure that we take into consideration your thoughts on what we're delivering for that particular area. So in addition to the traditional focus groups that we've had for many, many years, we've got some new ones. So I announced last month that we're starting up an accessibility focus group, and we're really excited about that. I hope to get that up and running in May for our first call, and all these focus groups meet virtually, by the way. So hopefully we'll have that going in May. That's my goal. We recently started up a remote worker focus group. Tammy did that, and that's how we got all the requirements essentially for what we wanted to do for remote worker that I talked about earlier. We have one for Questionnaire Framework. We have one for health and safety, which got spun up very quickly last year as a result of the pandemic. And then we have one for Kibana Analytics. Since we're investing so much in Kibana, we thought it'd be a good idea to not only have a technical focus group for Kibana, but also a functional one, so we can review, how Kibana works. I think it was early last year when we kicked off a PeopleSoft Test Framework focus group. That one's a little different. It doesn't. We don't use it necessarily to get new features. We use it as a way for everybody to help each other get up to speed on PeopleSoft Test Framework. So there's a mix of customers that have just started with Test Framework, as well as customers that have been using it for years. And so we kind of help each other out that way. So I do encourage you to take a look at that list and see which ones you think best are most important for you, and then go ahead and join those. The other thing that we'll be kicking off, hopefully in May, is our new the new membership period for the Customer Advisory Board for PeopleSoft. We identify about 30 or so customers, and those customers are part of a Customer Advisory Board. And we used to, before the pandemic, meet in person once about every year or so. But what we'll do moving forward is meet virtually, until we're able to meet in person. But the charter here is for these organizations to help shape the major investments that we do as a PeopleSoft organization. And it's been a great experience to be working with some of the top customers that we have in HCM. There's a customer advisory board for all the major product areas, by the way, including PeopleTools. But we try to identify 30 or so customers to participate in this on the board and help us shape the strategy and the investment that we're doing overall with PeopleSoft. So the next membership period will run from May 2021 to May 2023. So it's a 2-year commitment. If you're interested in participating, we do have a form that you have to fill out to meet the requirements that we have for our Customer Advisory Board members, as well as a guidelines document that kind of shows you the commitment that's involved in being a part of that. So you can always reach out to me if you're interested in that. And then the other way to participate in the process is the idea space on My Oracle Support. That's where you can go to enter in an idea that you have for us to consider as an enhancement to an existing product, or maybe a new area to invest in, to develop in, that you think would be beneficial. There's nothing too small and there's nothing too big to put out there, right? We started using this idea space probably 5 or 6 years ago, maybe something like 5 years ago, and we did it so that there was more visibility for ideas, because in the past, ideas would get buried as part of SRs. right? You'd call up support say, that's not really a bug, that's a new feature request, and they would just identify it in the My Oracle support as an enhancement in SR, and it would kind of get buried, right? So now we feel like with the idea space, and it's something that my team monitors actively, everybody can see the new ideas that people have and can vote on them and can comment on them. And then we do our level best to update the status of those. So if that idea turns into a feature that gets delivered, we'll update it. Recently, the idea space underwent a platform change. And so there was a little bit of heartache, I think, navigating the idea space there for a month or two. But we think things are stable now. But if you're having any issues with the idea space, please reach out to me or anybody on the team, and we'll see. We'll take a look at the problems that you're having. But we know that there was some issues with that rollout. But I think things should be clear now. If they're not, let us know. Okay. As I wrap up here, I just want to let you guys know that we have a number of different ways for you to get more information that's going on with PeopleSoft. The three things I mentioned earlier, the idea space, the CAB, and the focus group, that's a way to get to impact what we're actually developing and what we're going to consider as part of our priority and on our roadmap. But the way you stay connected with all the things that are going on with PeopleSoft, new conferences, user groups, new feature innovator recognitions, and everything else, we have multiple ways that you can do that. So you can see through the LinkedIn group and through Twitter, etc. But my favorite source for all of you is the blogs. So if you go to blogs.oracle.com/PeopleSoft, you'll see a couple different blog platforms. One of them is the strategy blog, where myself and my team and extended other folks within PeopleSoft, and sometimes even guest authors like from our consultants in the PeopleSoft ecosystem, will write a blog on a specific feature or topic that you can benefit from. So I do encourage you to take a look at the blogs. We do spend a good amount of time every month trying to come up with ideas to blog about that will help you with your PeopleSoft environment. And when you take a look at what's posted out there, if you haven't seen it, you'd probably be surprised at the amount of content that's there. Some of the traditional places to go, PeopleSoftInfo.com still remains the #1 place for you to go to get all things PeopleSoft. We're continually building off on that site too. So probably if you haven't been there in a while, if you go there now, you'll see some new things. So continue to use PeopleSoftInfo.com. That's where we post nearly all the content that's important for you to know about, whether it's new features, whether it's our roadmap, whether it's new feature innovators or links to the cloud team and other things that are going on. PeopleSoft Info is a great place to start. You guys know about our PeopleSoft video channel. So we've got all of our video features are posted out there on PeopleSoft VFO, but you can also get to them on our Oracle PeopleSoft YouTube channel. And I do recommend that. And you can always get to our roadmap either through PeopleSoft Info or directly to PeopleSoft PFE. PFE stands for Plan Features and Enhancements. I get the question a lot from customers, like, where's your posted roadmap? That's where it is, okay? You do need to have a Moss account to see it, because we only show the roadmap to customers. We don't show it outside our firewall. But as long as you log in with a Moss account, you can see all the features that we have planned over the next 18 months across all of our products. Okay, so with that, I didn't leave much time for questions, but I'm going to go through the Q&A, and I will do my best to answer them. I'll stay on and I'll just answer them on the chat or through the Q&A window, I guess I should say that. So with that, I just want to thank everybody for supporting the RECONNECT Envision conference. I think it's important for for you all. It's important for us to see the commitment that you have for PeopleSoft and the thirst for knowledge, and we do our best to give you as much as we can in the few days that we have together. And we know that it's a challenge to attend this conference while still being remote and dealing with everyday work and life, right? We're all in the same boat, but we do appreciate you doing that. So thank you very much and have a great conference.